Hello, today I'm going to be reviewing I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is slightly ironic because it was snowing last night in England. We've got a thin layer of snow on the ground outside, but I'm not the sort of person who likes to watch certain summery films in summer or certain wintry films in winter. For me, any time of the year is good for any movie if I feel like watching it. And in fact, blame 88 Films because they've just brought out a brand new collector's box set for the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy. It came out December the 21st in the UK, so I asked my wife if she would get it for me for Christmas, and she duly obliged. Here it is. That's where the poster comes from, and I'll unbox the rest of that actually at the end of this review. There will be spoilers in it. The story for the first film is, it's about a group of four youngsters who were all driving in the same car one night when they accidentally run a bloke over, and rather than go to the authorities and get into trouble, they decide to just dump him in the ocean and have done with it. But a year later, roughly, they all start to get weird messages like, I know what you did last summer, and words to that effect, and that's when the stalking and the slashing begins. I first saw this film just after it came out, 97, 98. I rented it, and I enjoyed it so much I watched it twice in the same weekend before I had to take the film back. I only think I've seen it maybe once more since then. It's not a film I've gone back to often, but when I recently did my top 100 horror films of all time rankings for this channel, I put the film, I think, 65th, just based on my great memories of it from like over 20 years ago. So it was interesting for me coming into this rewatch to see whether that ranking would stand up with me or whether I'd have to think about moving the film up or down in future. The four actors who play the leads are all pretty well known. It's something of an all-star cast list. I think my favourite among them is definitely Jennifer Love Hewitt. Me and my wife spent many a long hour watching her in Ghost Whisperer. That show ran for 5 seasons and we got to know her very well, I think. Sarah Michelle Gellar's someone I think I've seen in quite a few things, but nothing where she's older than about 25. I don't think she acts as much nowadays as she used to. I guess she's got family now, or maybe she just doesn't need the money. Ryan Phillipe, I remember from Cruel Intentions. He was a bit of a twat in that film. He's a twat in this film, to be honest, but he is a good actor. And the final member of the quartet is Freddy Prinze Jr, who I remember from the Scooby-Doo films that my kids went through a phase of watching. Sarah Michelle Gellar is in those as well. Those two are married in real life, by the way. I don't know if they started dating on I Know What You Did Last Summer or the Scooby-Doo films. I've never really looked into it. I do know that they're married, though, and that they're still together today. So it is a famous cast. Anne Heche is in the film as well, playing a more minor role. I remember her from a film where she was starring alongside Harrison Ford. It was like a couple trapped on an island or something, but yeah, really deep cast. The killer in this wears a fisherman's raincoat and carries a hook for a hand. He's sort of loosely based on the old Hookman legend. There's an early scene when the main characters are sat around sort of discussing the different versions they've heard of this. He's a weird killer though, because he gives second chances. I mean, there are literally times when he's stood over somebody and he won't finish them off because he wants to wait for the exact 1-year anniversary of the car incident. I mean, can you imagine if Michael Myers was about to kill someone and then went, not this time, the next time your ass is grass. It's easy to think during the story that Ben Willis, to give his proper name, is messing with these kids because he wants to make them pay for how immoral they acted over the car incident, but he's perfectly happy to kill random characters who had nothing to do with that. So I actually think that he's just after them because he's mad that they hit him. I don't think that we get to understand his thought processes properly, though. I mean, he's unmasked at the end of the film and he does speak a little bit, but I don't feel like we get to know his proper personality, which is fine. Mysterious is good. His kills aren't that imaginative, the hook, every single time, but that's fine too. There's a great chase scene involving him and Sarah Michelle Gellar's Helen. I mean, it's one of the great horror slasher chases. It's the perfect length for a chase. It's got some great moments. There's a homage to Halloween in there, where Helen's banging on the door of this shop, begging her sister to let her in, and the fisherman's sort of walking behind her, slowly catching up. There's another great moment where the fisherman sort of drapes this thing over him, pretends to be a mannequin, and in a lot of films they just have it so that he jumps out at this point and there's like a jump scare, but the way they do it here, Helen actually spots that he's under there, sort of turns around, looks at him, just trying to make sure in her own head that it's him, and then he jumps out. But I love the way they filmed this. It's absolutely great. And it's so sad at the end of the chase when he finally catches up to her and kills her. I just love the locations in this though. The alleyways look fantastic. There's different ways you can go. The shop looks great. The whole town. I mean, where this was filmed, it was filmed in Southport in North Carolina. The beaches look great in it though. And I totally fell in love with this whole community. Ryan Phillipe's character Barry has got this house which looks out onto the bay, and it's just the most amazing view. I don't understand how his character can be so angry all the time when he gets to wake up to this all the time. The movie starts off with this tracking shot that shows off the coast. I mean, it just glides over the ocean, then spins around and shows us this mysterious looking character sat on the bluffs. It's terrific. Another thing I like about this film is how it depicts the wild optimism of kids just before they leave school, and then shows us the sad realities of what can happen when they do leave. So at the start of this story, all four of the main characters are bubbly and positive about their futures. Three of them have massive career aspirations. The one who doesn't, Freddy Prinze Jr.'s Ray, he's expecting to only be a fisherman, but he has Julie James. That's his exciting future. To be honest, if you told me at 18 I was going to be with Jennifer Love Hewitt, I might have been quite happy to be a fisherman. I'd have cleaned toilets. But seriously, what's interesting is when we catch up with these guys a year on, they've all suffered a bit of a downward turn. So Julie is still at college, but she's miserable as sin, and she's broken up with Ray. On the flip side of that, of course, Ray has lost Julie, so he's got nothing. I'm not sure what Barry's career was meant to be originally. Was he going to join the NFL or something? But that's failed, whatever it was, and now he's back home just milling around, not doing anything with his life. Helen went to New York to pursue an acting career, but that's gone completely wrong, and she's had to move back home with a tail between her legs and work at her father's shop, and presumably her future career prospects are quite grim. I'm glad that the film doesn't come out and say that all of this happens because of the car incident and that they can't get over it mentally. Because if this was the real world and these were real characters and the car incident hadn't have happened, then all these bad things could still have happened to them after they left school, because that's just the real world, unfortunately. I would have liked to have seen all of them actually sit around and theorise a bit about why their lives go on a downward run. Is it because of the fisherman incident, or is it just fate? But the script doesn't go that far. The best example of the four is, of course, Helen, because she starts this film being crowned Miss Southport, or whatever the competition's called, and she ends the film, or she ends her role in the film, having that crown taken off her, and it's like the last thing that she's got in her possession from her more optimistic days, and now she's even losing that. And it's sort of symbolic that really that 5 minutes later she gets killed. I'd have liked to have seen her look a bit sadder during that decrowning ceremony, as if she was aware that she was losing more than just a crown, but never mind. I've got to mention the soundtrack as well. I love the Hush song anyway, but its use with this film is absolutely perfect, and there are some other good tunes now and then throughout the movie as well. The ending on the boat, whilst not as exciting as the Helen chase, is still really fun. It does feel a little bit choreographed rather than natural at times, but I like how Ben gets his hand lopped off. He'll get to have a proper hook for a hand now, which is sort of cool. And I don't even mind the sting in the tail where he comes through the glass at Julie at the end. I think if you did that in a movie now in 2020, you'd sort of roll your eyes a little bit, but in 1997 that sort of thing still felt really fresh. Do I have any other negatives about the film? I do think the middle section could have been tighter. I didn't really want to go to Missy's house twice, though I did like a lot of the reveals and twists, such as the fact that Ray has been seeing Missy for a while, and also the reveal about who the real killer is. All that stuff is really clever. I guess you could count Barry's annoying character as a negative. And there's a scene where Julie finds a body in the trunk with all these crabs crawling all over it, and then 5 minutes later all that stuff has disappeared. I guess it's possible that the fisherman could have scooped all that stuff out of the trunk with big gloves quite quickly, but I'm not surprised that the other characters don't believe her. But on the whole, this is an excellent film. It's definitely stood the test of time for me. It's a really creepy, atmospheric slasher film. I'll definitely be keeping it in my top 100 horror films list, and I'm very happy with my Christmas present, and I'm looking forward to watching 2 and 3 because I've never seen either of those before, and I hear at least the second one is very good. So I guess we've reached the point where I'll quickly show you the Blu-ray set in a bit more detail. So there's the front cover, and if I take out the first movie, there's the Blu-ray box, and inside there's a really cool booklet. I'm not sure if I can flick it open at that angle, but yeah, it's full of like text and stills from the films. It talks a lot about the first 2 movies. It doesn't say anything about the third. I don't know if they were ashamed about that one, but it does have some pictures from the third movie. The second film, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. This one, it was the one that had the poster inside it. And the third one, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. This one has a bunch of like postcards. I think only one of them is actually from the first movie. There's Ryan Phillipe and Sarah Michelle Gellar. And I don't recognise the scenes from the other postcards, having not seen 2 and 3 yet. Very crusty looking fisherman in that one. So there we have it. All the discs have got audio commentaries on and docos and bits and pieces. I'm really pleased to have this on my shelf actually. So let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I've given this film. Oh, there's a lot in here today. So we've got 1, 2, 3. You know it's a good score when I have to put 3 axes in my left hand and then reach down for some more. 4, 4.5. I'm holding them a bit awkwardly, but 4.5 out of 5 for I Know What You Did Last Summer. I do get the titles mixed up sometimes. I will accept it if some people think I've gone a little bit overboard with my score, but I was wavering between 4 and 4.5, but this is one of my favourite slasher films from the 1990s, definitely. I think it stands up really well today, and I'm looking forward to watching the second one. So until then, cheerio, bye-bye.